When people are in need of emergency medical care, we automatically call the rescue squad. But who do we call when we see an injured wild animal that needs medical care? In Sanibel Island, Florida, there is a team of veterinarians and volunteers standing by to rescue local wildlife and help them return to their natural habitat. Life at this animal clinic is anything but boring and repetitious. One day they are patching up the cracked shell of a gopher tortoise hit by a car. The next, they are performing surgery on a bird with a broken wing. And in between, they are rescuing baby raccoons who are without a mother. Meet the heroes of this Wildlife ER on this Unspoiled Planet. Sanibel Island, Florida is a popular tourist and retirement destination. It is also a tropical paradise where fascinating wildlife can be found. Here you'll see herons, pelicans, hawks, turtles, and all sorts of wildlife that enjoy the warm temperatures and the coastal environs. But wildlife living here is often accidentally injured by people going about their daily lives. When an animal is hurt, Crow comes to the rescue. Crow, the Clinic for Rehabilitation of Wildlife, is a veterinary facility dedicated to the rescue, care, rehabilitation, and eventual release back to the wild of sick, injured, and orphaned native wildlife. It's a small facility staffed by full-time professionals and many volunteers who spend their days in the pursuit of making life better for the animals in their care. Dr. P.J. Deichel is the Director of Veterinary Services here. She has been a wildlife rehabilitator since 1984, caring for thousands of wild animals over the years. Every day is different for Dr. Deichel. Today, she is performing surgery on a royal tern.
I came in last night. He's thin, unable to fly. People caught him easily. He has an abscess to the pec muscles. Seems to be a foreign body cause. Can't tell if it's fish bone or it's an old piece of hook. Something that's caused abscess in his pec muscle. And of course, that we need that to fly. You gotta have those muscles in good shape. We're giving this guy some subcutaneous fluids because it's going to be a while when he wakes up and he's going to rehydrate himself. So he's going to become dehydrated during the day. And that's one thing we don't want that to happen. He did lose a little bit of blood, not too much, but even a little amount for a bird can be half drastic.
Crow doesn't have an ambulance service, so most of the animals that Crow rescues and rehabilitates are brought here by people who discover them in distress. Jim King was in Sanibel Island on vacation when he discovered the injured royal tern. Here he describes what happened.
I was on Fort Myers Beach yesterday, and someone ran over a royal tern on the beach and obviously broke its wing at the shoulder and possibly its foot. And we just kind of guarded it, finally picked it up as the tide was coming in, and a lady that lives down on the beach went home and got a box, and we walked it back to her place, and then she brought it out here to Crow, which we both knew about. And so today I just stopped out to check on it, see how it's coming, and it looks like it might be okay.
There are three primary reasons animals end up at Crow. Automobile-related accidents are the biggest cause of injuries of wildlife around Sanibel Island. Fishing-related injuries are also a major source of problems for wildlife. Crow sees many birds that have been caught in fishing line or have been hooked. Crow also receives many animals that have been orphaned. Sometimes young animals are left to fend for themselves when the mother is struck by a car or injured in some other way. But oftentimes, people capture newborn animals mistakenly thinking they have been abandoned. The next patient is a badly wounded and emaciated bird. The exam reveals multiple fractures, exposed bone, and highly infected areas. Dr. Deichel contemplates the fate of this bird.
So what we're looking at with this animal is can we save him? And the answer at this point has to be no. he will not be a releasable bird. We are by law required, if this animal is not releasable, to euthanize him. And I think also ethically, we here at Crow believe that a wild animal, the greatest gift they have is freedom. And to take away their freedom, to take away the flight of a wild animal is a very serious thing to do.
Ultimately, the goal with each animal that comes to Crow is to release it back to the wild. Euthanasia is the last resort for animals here. Now the Crow team is working on a squirrel, a nursing mother with a bloody nose, evidence of head trauma, most likely from being struck by a car. Dr. Deitchel examines the squirrel, checking for fractures and other injuries. She is quick about it, since this animal is under stress. Covering the animal with a towel makes it more manageable and reduces the risk of a bite. While squirrels are rodents with long teeth, they are very low risk for carrying rabies. She decides to treat this one by administering eye drops to wash the eyes out, an injection of fluids to hydrate the body, and anti-inflammatory medicine to reduce swelling caused by the accident. The team decides that a painkiller is not needed at this time, but they will observe the animal throughout the day. Handling wild animals can be a challenge and requires a healthy dose of respect, especially when the patient is a 5-foot-long rattlesnake that was bleeding excessively from the mouth after being hit by a car. With heavy gloves and a piece of pipe, Dr. Deitchel coaxes the snake to the examination table. The first step is to inject an anti-inflammatory to reduce the swelling. Then she injects fluids to keep the snake hydrated.
Okay, Jordan, can we get another 20?
Following treatment, the snake is returned to its cage to recover. The challenges never stop at Crow. An ongoing project for Dr. Deitchel was this gopher tortoise whose shell had been cracked in several places. The process of repairing the shell takes time. You can see that some sections on the top are already under repair. She estimates this turtle is about 50 years old. Today, she is preparing to patch a crack on the bottom side between the front and rear legs. The first step is to cleanse the area, scrubbing with soap and water. Then, mix up the acrylic, the same material dentists use to make molds. Before applying the mixture, the crack is taped together. Then Dr. Deitchel patches the crack with the touch of a cake decorator icing a cake. This acrylic hardens almost immediately. Eventually, the shell will heal beneath the patch and the acrylic can come off. All in a day's work at Crow. Up next, rescuing injured animals isn't just for the pros. Learn how everyday people are responding and making a difference on Unspoiled Planet. Wild animals suffering injuries come to Crow every day, often the result of being struck by a car or accidentally getting tangled in a fishing line. And since Crow rarely has the ability to send someone out to handle an emergency, they rely heavily upon people who find the injured animals to also act as first responders, capturing the animal, administering any necessary first aid, and then delivering the animal to Crow for further evaluation. Answering the telephone at Crow are people versed in persuading callers to take these initial steps, but it's not an easy task. This volunteer describes what happens when someone calls in to report an injured animal.
When we receive a phone call, it seems like every phone call is different, and the finders are a huge range of their willingness to help. So you have the people who, right off the bat, you realize that they think that they're calling just to report something and their duty is done there. And if you realize that you're not going to get them to come out to crow, you try to at least get them to do the least. Maybe contain it, or maybe get someone else there to help them that they think might help. And then you go to your other options, trying to find one of our volunteers. But some of the people, first thing they ask is, well, how do I do it, and how do I find your place? And that's obviously the best case scenario. The trick is the people who are kind of wishy-washy in the middle, maybe have never dealt with us before, or have never had to pick up a wild animal. And the trick there is to make them realize that being the finder, they're the best chance for that wild animal to get any help from us. And that most of the time, if they don't do it, by the time we send someone out or we come out, the animal is going to be gone.
Everyday people with a compassion for animals bring the injured here. This man found a laughing gull on the road dragging its left wing. He took the time and the initiative to capture the bird and bring it to Dr. Deichel.
Hey, Sam.
Hey, guys.
Hey, who you got there?
I have a gull that I found on Sandcap Road that was dragging its left wing, and the cars were about to hit it, so I stopped and got it and brought it up here.
All right.
She immediately examines the bird, checking for fractures. The citizen who discovered the gull stays and even offers to help with the exam. The doctor concludes this bird has a broken bone. The next step is to take an X-ray to determine the exact nature of the injury. The bird is carefully taped to the table. Sometimes they use sandbags to gently restrain animals. The results show the fractured wing, but also reveals that this bird has been shot by a pellet gun. The pellet is still lodged in its wing. Dr. Deichel will patch up this bird and eventually release it back to the wild where it belongs. Crow's goal with every animal is to rehabilitate them and release them. Sometimes the rehabilitation takes months. But Crow wants to be certain the animal is 100% ready for life in the wild. At a nearby shopping center, a woman called in to report a pair of baby raccoons that appeared to be orphaned and have been wandering the parking lot and the nearby bushes. 2 Crow workers were available and came to the scene to capture the raccoons and take them back. With a small animal carrier and a pair of gloves, these workers are able to quickly secure these little ones. Scarlett Arnold owns a hair salon in the shopping center and made the call to Crow.
Well, I've lived on the island 5 years, and I know how Crow is so good about retrieving injured animals and, misplaced animals.
Thanks to Scarlett, these baby raccoons will be nurtured at Crow until they can be set free without being dependent on their mother. Up next on Unspoiled Planet, success stories. Once injured animals return to the wild. Inside and outside the facility, Crow is like an animal hotel with a brilliant assortment of creatures. There are storks, brown pelicans, burrowing owls, herons, osprey, hawks, and just about everything else under the sun in Sanibel Island, Florida. They live here while undergoing rehabilitation. Then they are returned to the wild.
Our goal always is to return this wild animal to the wild. Freedom is the greatest gift a wild animal has, and I don't believe that I have the right to take that freedom away unless I can guarantee that animal a quality life for the rest of his life. And very seldom do I think you can do that for a wild animal. Very few of us as human beings would want to spend the rest of our lives in a cage.
When an animal is finally ready to be released, it's a bit like graduation day. For several weeks, Crow has been working with this red-shouldered hawk. After being hit by a car, the people here nursed him back to health. He has been confined to a small cage, allowing his wings to heal. So today, he'll go for a test flight in the large cage where he has room to flap his wings. If all goes well, Crow will set him free. The test flight is a success. He is ready to go. Now they recapture the bird. Once out in an open space, the hawk is released. His first landing is a little shaky, but now he is on his own, free again. Later that day, it's time to say goodbye to a small bird that has been living in the large cage. A quick capture with the net, and set free in Crow's backyard. Some people wonder why Crow spends so much time and effort treating these patients. Catherine Bould, a volunteer veterinarian, explains.
To me, it just goes to the basic philosophy of Crow, that we treat individuals. We are not treating a population of animals, we're treating an individual. And as long as we feel that this bird or whatever animal has a reasonable chance of being functional and returning to a life in the wild, that it's worth every minute and every hour.
When releasing an animal, they want to deliver it directly into an area where it can adapt quickly. Today, the Crow team has brought this brown pelican to the water. There is no ceremony, but it marks a moment of triumph for Dr. Deitchel, knowing that the mission has been accomplished successfully.
It's obviously the greatest part of the job is to be able to set an animal free, especially when you've worked with this guy like for months and months with him to try to get him back into shape. But also, I have to admit, it makes me a little bit nervous always. You wonder, how are they going to do? Did you do your best? Are they 100% at this point? But it's time to go. We've done what we can for him. Now it's up to him.
As a small, nonprofit organization, Crow relies on the generosity of donors to fund their work. They also rely on volunteers of all ages who donate their time and energy. Most volunteers help with keeping the place clean and feeding the animals. Sometimes it's a dirty job. Carol Lowenstein started as a volunteer at Crow in 1987. Now she is on the staff.
Volunteers who come here either find they don't like it at all in the first day, or really become almost addicted to this place and often come even on their days off to see if there's something that they can do. Yes, our volunteers really do more than 1 or 2 hours worth of work. And jobs of every description, some of which you wouldn't want described to you. Dirty job.
Ben Johnson has been volunteering at Crow for years. On most days, he spends time in the cages feeding the animals. When school groups come to visit, he takes time to talk to the children and tell them about the animals.
Basically, here the volunteers, and everybody does seem to find their niche. Once they start coming, they can do diets, they can work up in the clinic, they can feed young birds, young raccoons, young squirrels. We got a number of squirrels up there right now. Or this is highly labor intensive. And say you can look around the cages and it's a 7-day operation, basically feeding, cleaning, what have you. So the majority of the volunteers are literally out cleaning cages, feeding birds. There's quite a bit of landscaping, mowing. I mean, it's just an endless job. Right now we're making a habitat for gopher tortoises, and today we had, for instance, 3 people working on that.
Some volunteers come to Crow because they love animals. When Ann Martin relocated to Sanibel Island, she was looking for a volunteer position.
I saw an ad in the paper, and I've always been attracted to animals, and came over here, started cleaning cages, and have been here ever since.
As a volunteer, Ann leads tour groups through the facility, educating them on caring for wildlife and how the public can be helpful in rescuing an injured animal. On the tour, visitors will see a collection of crippled wildlife that will never be healthy enough to be released, but yet can serve other purposes here. They have become permanent residents at Crow, each one with a unique story. There is the pelican with a broken bill. A Mexican eagle that will never fly again. When he came to the clinic, both wings were broken and fused together. This osprey will never fly again either, but she will live out the rest of her life here, assisting other ospreys who come into the clinic, especially orphans who need a mother to teach them to eat. And of course, there are animals that are just staying here temporarily while recovering. The endangered wood stork that stands about 3 feet tall and feeds by touch, not by sight. A great white heron, which only nests in Florida. A family of raccoons that will eat just about anything. There are burrowing owls, small birds that live underground and are highly concentrated in Cape Coral, Florida. A gopher tortoise limping along with a cracked shell waiting to be patched up. Meanwhile, back inside the clinic, the veterinarian and the volunteers handle the emergencies. It might be a baby alligator with a hook in its mouth, or another rattlesnake hit by a car. Perhaps a duck that is tangled up in fishing line. As you can see, the people at the Clinic for Rehabilitation of Wildlife are passionate about their work. They believe that each animal, each life is worthy of care and respect. Their philosophy in these animals existed before people did. We are guests in their environment. Therefore, we have a responsibility to be good guests and take care of them. The dedication and talent of this team has saved the lives of many animals here on this unspoiled planet.